we see going on. But take this and magnify it on the African continent. Take this and magnify it on other continents as well regarding the death that's taking place. And you would think that the last thing that this country would want you to spend your time talking about is a gay NBA player. A gay NBA player, man. And as I said before, that it was Etan Thomas that played for the Washington Wizards as well a few years ago. And when Etan Thomas took that kind of stand against war, and George Bush was the president of the United States, David Stern didn't embrace him. The other NBA players did not embrace Etan Thomas. And before that, it was young brother Chris Jackson or Mahmoud Rauf who took that kind of stand where he said, I would stand for the American flag out of respect for the flag. But since he had been in the NBA, he never took the Pledge of Allegiance. And that young man, of course, was scorned, was ridiculed, and run out of the NBA. And before that, it was Craig Hodges and others that took the kind of stands. And Craig Hodges at the time was the three-point shootout champ of the NBA. Played, I believe it was wing guard or point guard for the Chicago Bulls when the Chicago Bulls were on their reign in terms of, again, being the world champs in the NBA. Michael Jordan never came to the defense of Craig Hodges. Scottie Pippen never came to the defense of Craig Hodges. What's that other one running around talking about he's friends with the president in North Korea? Dennis Rodman never came to the support of Craig Hodges as well. So the more you think these things have changed, you see they remain the same as far as these Negro gladiators, these jigger gladiators that don't stand for anything, but yet they want to make you and I think that the biggest issue in America right now, when you're losing jobs, losing homes, losing your pension, your president is threatening through sequestration that you won't get a cost of living raise. They're tapping into your 401s, tapping into your pensions, and they got you worried about $1 million journeyman NBA player coming out the closet, man. And then put on the front page of Sports Illustrated that this is the gay athlete. Not a gay athlete, but the gay athlete, the definite article the. Meaning that this is the image of the gay athlete. Meaning you might be a black man, but you're non-threatening because because you may be on the down low or you on the low down. Now they've never put a picture on the front page of Sports Illustrated say the Hispanic athlete, the Asian athlete, the female athlete, the handicapped athlete, the blind athlete. But you got to be the gay athlete as a black man. That's what they're saying to the rest of the world. They take that Sports Illustrated and put that image up all around the world, man. They don't have an image of what they call the Greek athlete, the Jewish athlete, the Italian athlete, the marathon runner. They don't have a picture of the Preakness winner. They might say a Preakness winner or the jockey. They don't have a picture of the jockey. But you got to be the gay athlete. Showing you that there's another agenda to this, man. And you allow yourselves, as I said, to get relegated to talking about what's going on in the bedroom, but not talking about what's going on in the boardroom. And Jason Collins and the rest of them, Shaq, I don't care. You take the biggest, the tallest, the smallest one. Not going to talk about them white guys that's running the NBA. Not going to talk about them white guys. The majority of them are Jewish owners. You can't own a team, and I'll give you the list. Most of them are Jewish owners that own those teams in the NBA. Most of them, if not all of them. I know some of you talking about Jay-Z own the Nets. Yeah, right. They put his name on there just to say he owned a percentage. I know you think Michael Jordan owns something. Right. They put his name on there and say he owned a percentage. I know you think Bob Johnson owns something. No, they just put his name on there and say he owned a percentage. But clearly you got to see through the games, man. And if they took those kind of stands against the war, as one player tweeted last year in the NFL, Rashad Mendenhall, tweeted about them saying they captured Osama bin Laden, and he said, what's all this excitement about killing a man? And next thing you know, the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers, disassociated themselves from the comments of Rashad Mendenhall. So again, we see these kind of games going on. But if any of those players took a stand and said we wanted more black ownership in the NBA, they'd be out of the NBA. They'd be out of the NBA right now. So you got to raise the bar, raise the standard, raise the conversation, and don't struggle, as Malcolm X said, in the ground rules that your enemies or frenemies lie down for you to discuss to make you think you got to be running here talking about, well, will there be any more players coming out? Will there be any more players? Who cares, man? Who cares at the end of the day? Who cares? But if you allow yourself to be relegated to that conversation, then this is what we see. But of course, this all ties into as my guest, Brother Griff, talked about the other day, Professor Griff of Public Enemy. This ties into the Illuminati, which we talked about this past Thursday, May the 1st, or Wednesday, May the 1st, was their Founders Day. But this ties into their manifestos, the 21 manifestos of the Illuminati, who talked about, again, that's one of the things that they would promote. The gender benders. They would promote the diaper swipers. They would promote the cellar dwellers. They would promote, of course, homosexuality, so that you can confuse the young people, so that they wouldn't know whether they want to be a man or whether they want to be a woman. Now, I'm not beating up on those that may find themselves carrying on that type of practice or lifestyle, or some might say death style. But what I am talking about is when you see the NFL, when you see Major League Baseball, when you see the NBA trying to promote that, when they want you to be non-racial, they want you to be non-spatial, they want you to be non-political in terms of taking stands. But many of those athletes, such as Muhammad Ali and Jim Brown and Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and what's the brother that played for the Browns and died, never got a chance to even play in the NFL, was drafted by something Davis. It'll come to me. It doesn't matter. But many of those young men took stands against war, and then they invested their money in the black community. But you can't allow yourself to be reduced to that, as I said before. But that's one of the stories in terms of, again, the Illuminati. And I'll come back on another day and give you the 21 manifestos of the Illuminati and how that ties into the destruction of the moral fabric of the society, the destruction of, again, the social fabric of the society by promoting certain lifestyles, certain behaviors, again, toward our people and all other peoples in the society. So you create, of course, confusion within the society as well. Also, of course, we were joined by Delegate Jill Carter this past Thursday, along with State Comptroller Peter Franchos, looking at, of course, this issue of the prison and the corruption that's going on in the prison, as well as the Maryland General Assembly session, and looking at significant and important bills that were passed during the General Assembly session. And we'll have her coming back on, God willing, I believe, this week coming up as well, to go back into part 2, because there was much more that we did not get an opportunity to get into that I definitely want you to be able to get into and to hear regarding what's taking place in Annapolis. And speaking of what's taking place in Annapolis, I'm going to get into this prison story before I give you some other information that I want to get into and open up the lines. But according to the Sun paper, according to the news reports last night, after all of this has been exposed regarding the corruption that's been going on, the assembly leaders, and as I said before, the Sun paper and Washington Post, as you have seen, if you've been keeping up with the story, have now decided to take this story off of the front pages and resign it to page 2 and page 3 and page 4, because as long as it stays out there, it becomes an indictment on your governor, an indictment on his public safety secretary, Gary Maynard, becomes an indictment on federal prosecutor Rod Rosenstein, becomes an indictment on your attorney general Doug Gansler, becomes an indictment on your state's attorney Greg Bernstein, and others who said they're part of this task force that they have now put together. So they want this story off of the front pages right now, because it becomes a national and international embarrassment to your governor, Mr. Osei Can You See, who set up that PAC political action committee, who wants to look at running for a national office. And so he does not need this kind of news, which is really the truth, but they don't want truth coming out. They want you far removed from the truth right now. And so what the so-called task force job is to do, what your, again, others who are law enforcement job is to do, their job is to go in and try to do mini surgery. Try to go in and find the low and rank and file employees that they can indict, but don't indict anybody in the upper echelon. Don't indict any political figures. And God knows, don't indict the governor, the lieutenant governor, or anyone else. So as my brother, again, Chairman Fred Hampton Jr. would say, that whatever doesn't come out in the wash is going to come out in the rinse. But they may have to call Ben Carson the man with the gifted hands, because this is like going in and trying to perform mini surgery right now, man. Mini surgery without touching some vital organs. Those vital organs are those who are in certain positions in the city and in the state. So we clearly see this. But according to this article in the Sun paper this morning, and they put it in the Saturday paper because they know most of you don't read the Saturday paper. But most of you don't read the Saturday paper. You know those saying, if you want to hide something from a black man, black woman, you put it in a book. Well, they put it in the Saturday paper most of the time because they know you're not going to read the Saturday paper, except the sports, of course. You want to know who won the NBA playoff games last night? Except the sports, of course. And with that, this article, Assembly leaders to be briefed on jail problems. Joint panel to hear about corruption at the city facility. Now notice they just say the city facility, not the statewide now, city facility. General Assembly leaders said a joint committee of top legislators will hear from correction officials about alleged corruption at the Baltimore City Detention Center. The briefing to be held in June. The briefing to be held in June. You see this? They don't want you to have this hearing this month. They don't want you to have it this week as it was scheduled to be held. But I think we're going to have to look at putting together some forums, putting together some town hall meetings, inviting elected officials, inviting prison officials that want to come forward and tell what they know, man. And just inviting those who may have family members that have died in the prison system or that are locked up in the prison system and give them an opportunity to tell their story as well. I think we're going to have our own tribunal, man. I'll be damned if we're going to let O'Malley and Miller and Bush use intimidation tactics and others to try to stop family members and the public from knowing what's going on in these institutions and then getting justice for those that has to work in these institutions. But let me keep going in this article here. The briefing to be held in June replaces a House Judiciary Committee hearing that had been scheduled for next week. So you see what they want. They want to circumvent the power of Chairman Joe Valerio once again, as we're seeing. They want to circumvent the power of Chairman Joe Valerio because they don't want you, the public, to know what's been going on in Central Book. Isn't that interesting? They don't want you to know what's been going on in this taxpayer-funded facility. And we continue to pay out, again, these large amounts of money for crimes that's been committed under their watch in terms of inmates that's been assaulted, inmates perhaps that's been killed, inmates being neglected, benign neglect inside of these institutions. But you would think your governor, who talks about he wants transparency, you would think those that say they want transparency would really want transparency, but we're seeing that they really don't want any transparency to come out regarding what's been going on inside of Central Booking. But let me keep going here as we get into this article and go a little deeper. It's not that long, but I want to get into it and go a little deeper as we're looking at what's been going on inside of, again, the Maryland State Corruption Center, not Correction Center. So it goes on and says, Senate President Mike Miller, House Speaker Michael Bush announced the joint public briefing of the Legislative Policy Committee by top correction officials in June. So it goes on and says, Alexandra Hughes. Where do we know that name from? Alexandra Hughes. She's a spokeswoman for the Speaker, said the exact date of the briefing is expected to be announced next week. Now, for those of you that don't know Alexandra Hughes, when I used to host the final call over on the airways of Radio 1, she's the daughter, I believe, of Dr. Hughes, but she was one who worked in the Baltimore City Public School System headquarters over there when we blew the whistle. Myself and a brother named Bodio Scipio, or Scipio Bodio, Donald Richards. Check the record. When we blew the whistle about Alexander Hughes, along with Douglas Austin, along with Chris Thomas Colcuddy, along with Eric Letzinger, along with a host of others that went on a boating trip, tapped into our children's transportation fund to go on an outing for a morning or a day when they were supposed to have been at work. But when we blew the whistle on the story, of course, Bodio came under attack. Brother Muhammad show was subsequently, removed from the airwaves. But everything we said took place. And Alexander Hughes, when we found out, Alexis, as they call her, because we said they were riding her perhaps like Alexis, then she left, went to Annapolis with Martin O'Malley and followed O'Malley to Annapolis, and now she works for Speaker Bush's office. It's been alleged that she's been romantically tied to O'Malley for some long time now. For some long time. Long time. And, of course, it's alleged that she and Eric Letzinger, when Letzinger was fired and should have been charged, but they said to Bonnie Copeland, who was the superintendent of public schools at that time, if they did not get rid of Brian Marsh and some others, that then they was going to hold a press conference to talk about more of the corruption that was going on in the Baltimore City public school system. And they had O'Malley get rid of Bonnie Copeland. But Copeland is still around. I think she's over there at the Fund for Educational Excellence, which they call the Fund. The Fund, like the firm, in terms of running things in education. They tell me Alonzo could be on his way out. He could be on